Hello, my dear dreamer. Tonight, we soar through the heavens with one of Greek mythology's most enduring tales. The story of Icarus. It's a tale of ambition, defiance, and the timeless lessons of daring to reach beyond our limits. If you enjoy these journeys, please like and subscribe. It helps share this magic with more dreamers like you. Now, settle in, take a deep breath, and let's journey back to ancient Greece, to the towering cliffs of Crete, where a father and son dared to dream of flight. The rugged cliffs of Crete towered above, their jagged faces scarred by centuries of fierce winds and crashing waves. The untamed land met the endless Aegean Sea with a thunderous roar, waves smashing against the rocks like the distant drum beats of the gods. From these heights, the view was both breathtaking and terrifying, with the vast ocean stretching endlessly to the horizon, a world beyond reach. Here, Daedalus and his son Icarus lived in imprisonment, bound not by physical chains, but by King Minos' unyielding will. The mighty king, fearing their brilliance and their potential to outsmart him, had confined them to the island, hoping to keep their ingenuity locked away in isolation. Daedalus, known far and wide as one of the greatest minds of his time, was no ordinary man. His creations were marvels of both form and function. With his skilled hands, he had built the labyrinth, a maze so complex that it ensnared even the fierce Minotaur, the half-man, half-bull creature kept there as punishment. The labyrinth was a testament to Daedalus' genius, an invention so intricate that no one, not even the gods, could navigate it without becoming hopelessly lost. But as with all things powerful, such brilliance bred fear. King Minos, recognizing Daedalus' unmatched intellect, grew afraid that the craftsman's creations might one day turn against him. In his fear, the king imprisoned Daedalus and his son, Icarus, on Crete, a place where they could not use their knowledge to escape his rule. Despite the heavy weight of their confinement, Daedalus did not despair. Every night, he would climb to the top of the cliffs, looking out over the vast expanse of the sea, his thoughts lost in the stars above. The sky, stretching endlessly in all directions, became his only escape, an ever-present reminder that there was a world beyond the island, a world of freedom and possibility. The constellations scattered like jewels across the dark fabric of the night. They were not just lights in the sky to him, they were symbols of his unyielding determination. With each passing night, Daedalus' mind worked furiously, always searching for a way out, always hoping for a solution that would allow him and his son to break free from Minos' cruel grasp. Icarus, on the other hand, had a different view of the stars. Though his father's mind was consumed with plans of escape, Icarus was not interested in fleeing the land. He was drawn not to the earth beneath his feet, nor to the narrow confines of their prison, but to the heavens themselves. The young boy had always dreamed of flight. His soul was restless, hungry for the freedom the sky promised. While Daedalus dreamed of bending the elements to his will, of creating a path out of their exile, Icarus dreamt of something more personal, more profound. He dreamt of soaring, of feeling the wind against his face as he flew through the clouds, untethered and free. The boy would often join his father on the cliffs, gazing out at the same stars. But while Daedalus's eyes were fixed on the constellations, calculating, plotting, Icarus's gaze was fixed on the space between them and the heavens. They would often close his eyes and imagine what it would feel like to be weightless, to glide through the air as the birds did. He would stretch out his arms as if he were already flying, and the wind would carry his dreams as far as the eye could see. Though Daedalus was absorbed by his thoughts of escape, his son's wonderment was a constant reminder of the pure, untamed hope that still lived within him. Icarus, with his youthful exuberance and unquenchable spirit, was not burdened by the fear and caution that had come to define his father's life. For Icarus, the sky was not a place of danger, but of possibility. He was driven by a simple belief that if he could only find a way, he could touch the heavens. His dreams were untethered to the practicalities of the world. Unlike his father, who sought a way out through intellect and cunning, Icarus sought a way to flight, unlimited and free. Daedalus watching the birds dance effortlessly on the sea winds. Their wings carried them across the skies, unbound by walls or waves. Turning to Icarus, his eyes alight with determination, he said, "If we cannot escape by land or sea, then we will escape by air." It was a bold idea, one that defied the boundaries of human experience. But Daedalus was a man whose genius thrived on defying limits. Father and son began their work in secret, the cliffs of Crete becoming both their prison and their workshop. The jagged edges of the rocks concealed their labor, while the seabirds above unknowingly offered the means of escape. Feathers of all sizes were collected, tiny, delicate ones for precision and large, sturdy ones for strength. Daedalus crafted frames from supple wood, light yet resilient, shaping them to mimic the curves of wings. Daedalus, ever the master craftsman, fashioned the wings with the utmost precision, carefully binding feathers to a lightweight wooden frame with wax and resin. Each stroke of his hand was measured, his mind weighed down by the knowledge of the dangers that lay ahead. And yet, even as he worked, there was a certain beauty in the task, a sense of hope that began to shimmer amidst the shadows of their imprisonment. This was their only chance, their final bid for freedom. It was during these long nights of labor that Daedalus would tell Icarus stories, tales woven with wisdom, but also with the caution he so desperately wished to instill in his son. Yet Icarus, filled with youthful ambition and a burning desire to fly, listened to these stories with the same detached fascination with which one listens to fables rather than warnings. His heart was racing toward the sky, drawn by the promise of the heavens. One evening, as they sat together on the cliffs, the wind blowing gently through their hair, Daedalus spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of years spent in exile. "Icarus," he said, his eyes tracing the stars, "do you know the story of Phaethon?" Icarus turned to his father, intrigued. "No, father, tell me." Daedalus's voice grew somber as he recounted the tale of Phaethon, the son of the sun god Helios. Phaethon, in his reckless youth, had begged his father to allow him to drive the sun chariot across the sky. Helios, despite his misgivings, had granted the boy's wish. But Phaethon was not strong enough to control the fiery steeds. The chariot veered too close to the earth, scorching the land, and then too far, freezing it. In the end, Zeus had struck him down with a bolt of lightning to save the world from destruction. Icarus listened intently, but the warning did little to extinguish the fire burning within him. He could not help but dream of what it could be like to feel the sun's warmth, to ride the winds with the freedom of a bird, to escape the confines of the earth forever. Daedalus, seeing the unyielding spark in his son's eyes, spoke with a mix of caution and sorrow. "Icarus, it is not enough to dream. The world above us is full of dangers, and I fear that you do not understand them all." But Icarus's heart was set on the stars, and no amount of caution could sway him. He was determined to rise above it all, to soar higher than any mortal had ever dared. As the days passed, Daedalus and Icarus worked tirelessly in their hidden workshop, crafting the wings that would carry them to freedom. One such evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the cold night air settled in, Daedalus spoke again, his voice low and heavy with thought. "Have I told you the story of Arachne?" he asked, his eyes tracing the delicate movements of his hands as they worked on the wings. Icarus, his eyes wide with curiosity, shook his head. "No, father, tell me." Daedalus's fingers paused for a moment, and he looked at his son with a solemn expression. He could see the fire in Icarus's eyes, the same flame that had burned in his own youth, an unyielding thirst to reach beyond the mortal limits, to touch the unattainable. But Daedalus could not help but try to temper that fire with wisdom, even as he recognized that it was that very fire which made his son so alive. Arachne was a mortal, a weaver of unmatched skill. Daedalus began. Her tapestries were so magnificent that people came from all corners of the world to see them. It was said that her talent was so divine that it could only have been gifted to her by the goddess Athena herself. But Arachne, proud and defiant, claimed that her skill was her own, and she had the arrogance to challenge the goddess of wisdom to a contest. Icarus was intrigued. He had never heard this story before, but he was still caught in the rhythm of his own dreams, the image of soaring high above the earth. He nodded for his father to continue. Arachne and Athena stood before their looms, weaving side by side. Arachne's hands flew with grace and speed. her tapestries flawless. But what made her art so unique, so daring, was the subject matter. She wove scenes of the gods, of Zeus and Hera, of Athena herself, caught in their most unflattering moments. She painted them not as the noble, omnipotent beings the world revered, but as flawed and petty creatures, filled with jealousy, pride, and rage. Icarus frowned, sensing that his father's tale was leading to something dark. Still, he didn't interrupt, eager to hear the end. When Athena saw Arachne's work, she was furious. Not only had the mortal dared to challenge her, but the tapestry itself revealed the gods in a light they could not accept. Enraged, Athena destroyed Arachne's tapestry, and in her fury cursed the young weaver. She transformed Arachne into a spider, dooming her to weave for eternity, her skill becoming her curse. Icarus's brow furrowed as he took in the story. "But father," he said, his voice laced with confusion, "how can that be? Arachne was just showing the truth. She wasn't wrong, was she?" Daedalus sighed, his heart heavy. "Arachne's skill was not her downfall, my son. It was her pride, her belief that she was beyond reproach, that no power was greater than her own. The gods did not punish her because of her talent, but because she dared to challenge them in such a way. Pride unchecked leads to downfall. It blinds us to the dangers that lie ahead." Icarus paused, contemplating his father's words. He didn't fully understand the lesson Daedalus was trying to impart. To him, Arachne's defiance seemed more like courage, more like a desire to reach beyond the ordinary, to challenge the boundaries set before her. It was a spirit that Icarus could relate to deeply, a spirit that he himself felt burning within him. "I understand, father," Icarus said at last, though his voice betrayed his uncertainty. "But I think Arachne's spirit is the same as mine. She didn't fear what might happen. She just wanted to create something new, something that no one had ever seen before." Daedalus smiled sadly at his son, his heart both proud and burdened by the young boy's unyielding spirit. He wished he could quiet that fire within him, but he knew it was a part of who Icarus was. Instead, he simply nodded. "Yes, my son," Daedalus said, his voice gentle. "It is that spirit that makes you who you are. But remember this, there are moments in life when that spirit must be tempered with wisdom. The world is full of dangers, and not every dream should be pursued without thought. Arachne's pride cost her everything. The gods have their reasons for the way things are, just as there are limits to what we can achieve." But even as he spoke, Daedalus could see that his words had little impact. Icarus's mind was already far beyond the cliff's edge, far beyond the realm of caution. The boy's heart was set on something greater, something that could not be contained by mere words or warnings. Daedalus sighed, knowing that his son's desire to touch the heavens was something only time could teach him, and that the consequences of Icarus's ambition would be both wondrous and tragic. And so, night after night, father and son worked in secret, crafting something that had never been seen before. Feathers were collected from the gulls that flew above the cliffs, their wings strong and sleek. Wax was melted, mixed with resin, and carefully applied to hold the feathers in place. With each delicate movement, Daedalus spoke to his son of the dangers that lay ahead, of the caution needed when flying. But Icarus's heart was already far above the earthly warnings, racing toward the sky with every fiber of his being. At last, the wings were complete. They were marvels of ingenuity, each feather meticulously placed, the frames light yet strong, but bound with wax and resin that gleamed in the morning sun. As the golden light bathed the cliffs, Daedalus and Icarus stood at the precipice of freedom. Daedalus turned to his son, his face etched with a mixture of hope and fear. "Remember, Icarus," he said, his voice firm but tinged with tenderness. "The sky is as dangerous as it is beautiful. Fly neither too high nor too low. The sun's heat will melt the wax, and the sea's spray will weigh you down. Follow my path, and together we will escape this prison." Icarus nodded, but his eyes were alight with anticipation. The warning seemed to him distant, mere words that could not compare to the beckoning embrace of the sky. Together they leaped from the cliffs, and the world below fell away. The wind roared in their ears as it caught their wings, lifting them higher. For the first time, they were no longer prisoners of Minos. They were birds, angels, beings unbound by the laws of men. Daedalus flew with the careful precision of a craftsman, his eyes fixed on the distant horizon where safety lay. He kept his attitude steady, mindful of the balance between the sun's glare above and the sea's foam below. But Icarus, oh Icarus, for him, flight was not just escape, it was liberation, a symphony of wind and light that filled him with a joy he had never known. The sky was infinite, and in its vastness he felt something stir deep within his soul. He laughed. The sound carried on the breeze, and for the first time he felt truly alive. Higher and higher he climbed, the cool mist of the clouds kissing his cheeks. The sun blazed above, its light dazzling him, its warmth intoxicating. He stretched his arms wide, his wings beating in rhythm with his racing heart. "Come back, Icarus," Daedalus shouted, his voice strained with fear. "Remember my warnings. Follow my path." But Icarus could not hear, or would not. The sun seemed to call him, a golden beacon drawing him closer. The wax, softened by its heat, began to drip, unnoticed at first. Feathers loosened and drifted away, carried by the wind like fragments of a dream. "Icarus," Daedalus cried again, his voice breaking. And then it happened. The wings collapsed, their structure undone by the relentless sun. Icarus faltered, his arms flailing as he realized too late what was happening. His body plummeted, the wind no longer a companion, but a roaring enemy in his ears. "Father," he screamed, his voice swallowed by the abyss below. Daedalus could only watch in helpless agony as his son fell, the brilliance of his flight extinguished in an instant. Icarus hit the sea with a final, resounding silence, the waves closing over him as if to claim him forever. The waters churned and foamed where he had fallen, and Daedalus, heartbroken, circled the area before finally flying on. There was no rescuing his son from the depths. He named the waters the Icarian Sea, a tribute to the boy who had soared so high and fell so tragically. When Daedalus reached the mainland, he landed on a desolate shore, his wings heavy with grief. He knelt on the rocky ground, the weight of his loss pressing him down. He had escaped, but at what cost? For the rest of his days, Daedalus carried the memory of Icarus's flight, not as a failure, but as a paradox. It was a tale of caution, a warning against hubris, yet also an ode to the audacity of dreams. Icarus had touched the heavens, if only for a moment, and in that moment he had lived more fully than most ever would. And though Icarus was gone, his name would live on, whispered in the tides and etched into the annals of time, a bittersweet reminder of the beauty and peril of the unbridled ambition. Sweet dreams, my dear friend, and may your wings carry you safely to your horizon. Good night.